I woke up one morning only to find that everyone was gone. Hello? I checked the hallway, the bedrooms, the kitchen, and even the neighborhood. Hello? But my foster parents and everyone really had vanished, or nearly everyone. It was an hour until I saw another soul, or rather, another soul saw me. Annette was from school, a well-tended sunflower of a girl. She invited me over and offered me some food.
Do you think it's the rapture?
Annette asked. No, Annette, it's not the rapture. We decided to stick together, and every day from then on for months, life was scavenging for whatever the weird-ass rapture left behind as summer leached away. Every day grew colder, and that was soon going to be a problem. One day, while out on our hunt for food, Annette stumbled upon some canned peaches.
Hey, there's a stash.
But just then, the owner of the stash caught us red-handed.
They're my peaches. Get away or I'll poke a hole right through you.
I braced myself to fight, but the intruder warned us that any noise would attract the dogs, a merciless group of scavengers. She was right. I didn't want to take the chance, but Annette felt differently. Her deafening cry was enough to send the intruder running, but now we had a bigger issue on our hands. The dogs were on our trail. Why they were called dogs when they wore those scary-ass bird masks is anyone's guess. We ditched the peaches and made a run for it, hiding in a nearby alley. I'm not the sort to pray. I didn't start then. I was just trying to stay quiet when my body wanted to scream. Turns out, sometimes you don't need to pray for your prayers to be answered. Because just then, two bright lights illuminated the sky like meteorites crashing into the earth.
What in the hell, what?
That was our cue to escape, but I was curious. I wanted to know what those lights were, so I ushered Annette to the crash site. We couldn't believe our eyes. It was a giant creature, unlike anything we had ever seen. I wondered if it happened to notice us. It didn't. Instead, it turned and headed away. But Annette, ever the wild one, seemed to have a crazy idea. Annette, what are you doing? I protested.
We have to follow it and find out more.
She said, dragging me along. And so we followed the giant, careful not to let it notice us. We trailed it until it reached a shelter, perhaps its home? But just then, another giant appeared, this one green. We observed them communicate in their indiscernible tongue, and then they parted ways. Annette didn't seem to be satisfied with this, and she tailed the green giant. The crazy girl yelled at it.
Hey, are you friendly?
The giant noticed us, but I didn't wait to hear an answer. Grabbing her by the arm, we made a run for it through the woods. But that's when we ran into the dogs. They apprehended us, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. Just then, the giant showed up.
Oh, crap.
With the dogs distracted, Annette and I easily slipped away. I thought they were toast, but strangely enough, the green giant ignored them as though they were less than dogs, like they were insects. We kept our distance, watching the dogs harass the giant every step of the way, but after that, things went back to normal for a few weeks. We were back to scavenging again. Until we found a corpse with claw marks. I told Annette that there were no bears, but we couldn't shake off the possibility, with all the strange things happening. However, later that night we realized the truth. It wasn't a bear. Annette and I made a run for it. I slipped and fell, but just when I thought it was over for me,
Back off.
the intruder from earlier came to my rescue.
Follow me.
She led us to a place that we normally wouldn't go, but strangely enough, the beast wouldn't follow and instead turned back. The old lady, Beatrice, introduced herself to us and told us that the wolves didn't like the giants. Leading us to her hideout, we soon realized that this was the home of the red giant.
Welcome to your new home.
Now, our band of 2 had become 3, and we found ourselves scavenging together, taking every bit of food the dogs left behind. The days passed like this, getting colder with each passing night, until one day, the red giant made his appearance. We hid, but then it looked right at us, and then left. I was scared and suggested we leave right away, but Beatrice reminded me that the wolves are still out there. But then,
Lot.
the red giant came back with a bowl of hot liquid. We were skeptical at first, but Annette was more bold than I was. What was she doing? Didn't she understand that it was bait? Annette tasted the steaming liquid while the giant watched from a distance.
It's okay.
She confirmed. She had taken the risk, and we shared the rewards. But just as we were loading up our cans with the weird stew, the giant moved. We all knew what to do. We scattered, and it froze. Annette was the first to notice, and she went back. But looking back is a bad idea. Looking back is a bad idea. You leave her alone? I yelled, my anger greater than my fear, until it looked at me. Beatrice and I fled, and all I could do was watch in despair as the monster took my friend away. We moved our camp, but we didn't move away. It continued bringing us its weird stew every night. It stood there waiting, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for an hour. But Beatrice was right, we could always outwait it. We finally had food, but the problem was, it was getting colder, and Beatrice couldn't take it. "Wake up, Beatrice, wake up," I cried. I had scouted the hideout of the dogs and was prepared to risk it all and take Beatrice there. We packed our stuff, but when we arrived, the wolves had beaten the dogs. We returned to our cold camp, and the giant had another bowl of stew for us. Only this time, Beatrice couldn't run. I yelled. I would have stayed. It would have been so easy to join her. But I realized then I wanted to live. I had to move. I needed somewhere safe and warm. I wasn't going to get both, so I'd settle for warm. I was back at the den of the dogs, looking for some fuel I could use to keep warm. I found it, grateful I wasn't going to freeze to death. I was right. As the blood pumped out, the weirdest thought came with it. I hope it kills me quickly. But then, how did the giant find me? It reached for me next. All my problems were over, just not in the way I thought. I was patched up and restrained. I couldn't move as it moved closer and closer. It spoke, but I didn't understand. But then I heard a familiar voice from behind.
I think he's trying to talk to us.
I was so glad to see them again, and we shared a group hug. The red giant had patched me up and fed us everything. He was friendly. But friendly doesn't mean it's a friend. The giant had saved my life, but that didn't mean I trusted it. It saved my life for what? We settled in quite nicely. We basically had a free run of the place, but we weren't allowed to step outside. Beatrice thinks it's a good deal with the wolves running amok. It was colder in here, if anything. Annette showed me how they stay warm for the night. They basically climbed onto the giant's sleeping form. But there was no way I was doing that. Absolutely not. Over the next few days, I continued to observe. Annette and Beatrice completely trusted it, but not me. I continued skulking it, waiting for a chance to go outside. But one day, I managed to get an angle to peek past, and I noticed it was spring. I tried to convince Annette and Beatrice to leave with me, but they didn't seem to like the idea. I knew I was on my own, so I kept watching the red giant. It was always being careful, but eventually it got slack, and I took my chance. It would soon start its hunt. If I stayed anywhere near, it'd find me. But the wolves would still be out there, and their hunt was the really dangerous one. I realized there was another place where the wolves wouldn't go, because Red wasn't the only giant. I had a little food in my pockets. I knew how to set up a shelter that'd be good enough for a night. At first light, I'd head to the dogs mall and start collecting equipment. I was already planning my new life. But just then, the green giant came out. Just like the red giant, it was doing something I didn't understand. I couldn't believe my eyes. Suddenly, I understood where the wolves came from and why they were here. I remember thinking about how the emerald giant wasn't going to spend its evening stepping on each individual ant. Instead, it made the wolves do it. It was clearing out what the Not Rapture had left behind. I ran back to the red giant and tried to have him follow me. I tried my best to explain the situation, and thankfully he understood. But did he understand the consequences? The other giant came stomping out. I was scared for Red. I shouldn't have been worried for Red. I should have been worried for me. The two giants battled it out, and at first it looked like Red might actually win, but then Green summoned his wolves. I should have run, but instead, we stuck together. I cowered between his legs as the battle raged on and the corpses mounted up, but I stayed and watched as they fought. And as I watched Red struggle, I was finally recognizing the truth. It was only then I really got it. He didn't have ulterior motives. He just loved us. I wished I had realized earlier, but I knew it then. Eventually, everything stopped working, and it was time to move on. Sometimes people just have to go, and there's nothing you can do about it. The time we have together is the time we have together. He taught me that, at least that's what I took from it. And love, of course. We never truly understand each other, not really, but sometimes we understand enough.